Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Pit of Motor Chaos. This your host, Dave. I got a special guest all the way from California, Jesse Adams. How's it going, Jesse?
Oh, going great, going great. How about you?
Not bad at all. So, how's the weather out in Cali?
Actually, right now in Northern California, where I'm from, it's storming pretty bad. We're supposed to race this Sunday, but this particular storm's supposed to last like 6 days. We had 50-mile-an-hour winds last night, trees falling down, power outage, internet outages, everything. But it seems to be going okay now.
Wow. Yeah, we had some snow. What was it? Monday night we got some snow, about 5 inches, something like that. Yeah.
I'm just barely out of the valley outside of Sacramento, and I don't get snow here, but I've been seeing all over Facebook people out on the outskirts have been getting snow that they don't usually get. So, pretty wild storm last night.
Wow. So how was your holidays?
Good. It was great. We finished off our last TNA race in November last year. We thought about putting a little one together in December, but we held off, and it's California, so we basically start racing January 1st, and we race all the way into November every year. So our only off season is basically the month of December.
Wow. So did you have a good full racing schedule in 2020, even with the COVID?
We did, actually. It started as a joke back in March. I kind of got tired of social media within about a week of COVID and all the shutdowns and everything. So I made a joke post on Facebook saying, I'm tired of everybody's opinion posts, and I put together a 32-car shootout. If you weren't invited, I just couldn't take your posts anymore. And in 2 minutes, my phone was blowing up. So I called my partner Tony. Said, "Hey, I think I got a good idea here. We need to put a race together." So about 2.5 weeks after California basically shut the entire state down, we did a limited car count, 32-car field race for thousands of dollars to win, and it got popular, and it just took off. We ended up doing 6 events last year.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So let me rewind the clock with you, Jesse, and ask you, how did you get into drag racing in the first place?
Well, I'm third-generation racer. So my grandfather, his name is Jess Adams also. My grandfather raced up in Marysville and Oroville and Vacaville. And then when he passed away, my dad was young, and my dad continued to take over the family business with my grandmother and was just always into cars and automotive stuff. So my dad was racing as a teenager, and I was born into it. So here I am, third generation. I've been doing it now for, 25 years.
Wow. So after all these years, what still keeps you passionate about it?
Hate to lose, love to win.
Okay. Now,
it's always been my goal for the most part to be able to make racing a career of some sort. And I build race cars basically for a living. I do a lot of wiring, plumbing, welding, roll cages, chassis work, that type of stuff. So that keeps me busy while I'm not actually racing. It's kind of tough on the West Coast to race for a living. In the Midwest, some of those guys, they've got it lucky. A lot of money to win. You can race 3-4 days a week, every weekend. So if you can afford to keep your stuff going and keep it maintained and not hurt any parts, there is a good chance to make more money back there. Well, here we don't have a chance to really make a living off of winnings. So I keep myself active in the racing community and then race when I can. And now with the promotions, it's been a pretty steady, healthy income for 2020, and 2021 is looking even better.
Yeah, keep yourself busy, man. So
yeah.
So now, 25 years ago when you started racing, what was the first car you started racing in?
First car I drove on a racetrack was a '66 Mercury Cyclone that my dad bought. It was actually wrecked by a teenager. Another father had this car, and the teenager thought that he would put it in the garage for his dad after they had washed it, and he literally put it in the garage. So it wrecked this car pretty bad. It was totaled. My dad bought it. We fixed it up, and that's when I started racing in high school. So I ran that car for, I think, 3 years before we bought a stock Eliminator Chevelle. Then Eliminator Chevelle for a few years. And moved up to a Camaro and a Dragster, and then I've driven everything since.
So how many cars are you currently drag racing in?
Yeah, it's no matter what, even when I say I'm going to take a break, I just can't seem to get myself away from it. And then, last year with the way COVID went down, Tony Trimp and I, we've been racing together for years, basically since I was a teenager also. And we've always wanted to kind of step out and do something like this on our own. And COVID made it a real opportunity for us, because Tony's family owns Sacramento Raceway, and it's a privately owned facility, which that's the biggest problem with some of these racetracks going on right now, especially out west, is most of the racetracks are owned by a city or a county facility. And when they're owned by city or county, you have to play by their rules. Sac Raceway being privately owned, we just went and did our due diligence. We went through the CDC, we went through the county, we went through district supervisors, law enforcement. We asked all the right people, and they basically told us, look, we can't enforce anything here. You guys do what you're going to do on private property. The only time we're going to come out is if an actual crime is committed, and then you could get cited for something else if you're over the quote-unquote limitations. But, it's a very clean atmosphere at our races, and we're not getting in trouble for anything. So it turned out great. A lot of people kind of doubted us at first, but we put this whole thing together, and that's what the TNA Race Club is. We kept it low-key to start, and we kind of did an invitational only or first come, first serve, because we limited our car counts. And then as things got to open up more and more and more, Trimp and Adams, that's what TNA stands for, Trimp and Adams Race Club, really came to be very popular by the end of the year.
So how many different cars are you racing in?
I've got a 69 Camaro, and I've got just a suspended rear engine dragster that I run in Super Pro or Super Comp. My Camaro I'll run in Super Street or No Box, and then my dad's he just recently bought a Super Stalker that we're just going to use for bracket racing. And we just sold the Chevelle that I told you about earlier. We sold that just a few months ago to another guy. So my dad and I together, we've got 3 or 4 race cars. Tony Trimp and his family, they've got a few. The cool thing is, this year, the way the Sacramento Raceway program is run, we're going to have 5 TNA events, and Sac Raceway also has a massive amount of events throughout the year. So I get to actually race those while I operate and promote the TNA races. It's kind of bad business, conflict of interest for a promoter to race his own event. So I don't. I just kind of stick to operating and trying to make all the right calls and keeping my racers happy.
Now, with the TNA Racing, what kind of classes of racing do you have in that racing?
Well, not typically, it's just kind of the way we do it. We have one category, and it's all bracket racing, 5/10, full tree, but we do separate the category box cars and no box cars. So the no box guys, obviously, they just don't have a delay box. They've got just about everything else, and they leave off the bottom bulb. Whereas the box cars, they run electronics, they run a delay box, other timers, throttle stop stuff if they want. Usually nobody does. Everything we do is 8th mile. But we keep the non-electronics class and the electronics class separate until the final round. Every race we've done, 14 final rounds, has been box versus no box in the final, so it works out really well. A lot of the time, you won't get no box cars showing up to a race where they think they have to race against box cars. But by the time a guy gets into the 7th or 8th round without a box in his car, he doesn't care who he races in the final. So the kind of the beauty of what we're doing here is we're able to pull, whether it's 64 cars, 80 cars, our biggest event last year had 184. We're able to bring all those cars in, take all their entry fees and put it into one purse and pay out larger money than if we actually ran 2 separate categories. So doing it the way we do, we keep the entry fees low, we keep the payouts by West Coast standards pretty darn high, and we pay down more rounds than any other race like ours.
Now, do you have to rent the track out to do the events?
We do. We do have track rental fees. Even though Tony Trimp's family, owns the racetrack. It's still a business, and we still rent the track from his father-in-law. So, we've got track rental fees if we go anywhere else. Last year we did a race in Reading, at Reading Drag Strip. That was a fun one. Quite a story there. We had a lightning strike Saturday morning that took out the timing system and everything. We had to makeshift the timing system work for the weekend, but we got it done and had a great race. This next year we're going to Samoa Drag Strip up in Eureka, California. And we'll have 5 weekends at Sacramento, 1 at Eureka, and we're also putting on a big one in Darlington, South Carolina. So this will be the first time that Tony and I head east to actually promote something. I've raced back east quite a bit over the years, but to actually go out there and promote in a place where you could potentially get 400, 500, 600 entries at one event, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Now, do you ever go to Formosa?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've actually, I go to Formosa a lot. I've won the March meet 3 times myself. Once in my Camaro in 2010. Once in Funny Car in 7.0 Pro in 2012. And I drove somebody's front engine dragster in 2015. So I won 7.0 Pro there also. So I won the March meet 3 times. In 2014, I ran Nitro Funny Car at the March meet. And I've won the Hot Rod Reunion. It's not all about what I've won, me. But you asked about Formosa. Formosa and I have really good history together.
That track has a lot of history.
It's pretty fun. The March meet is a great event. The hard part for someone who wants to race for bigger money like me is you try to go to a race like that. You're going there for the experience and for the history and for the enjoyment of it. Because really what it takes is 5 days at the racetrack. And you really can't make the winnings don't pay what it costs you to be there for 5 days. But, they fill the place to capacity, and that's one of those races that you say, you know what, I don't care about the money this week. I'm going for the history and I'm going for the fun of it.
Now with TNA Racing, do you have any sponsors?
Oh, we've got a ton of sponsors. We've been doing really well. Everybody, a lot of people in drag racing are business owners, and we're able to provide a place for them to race. And in 2020, because so few racetracks were actually open, we had people that typically don't come to Sacramento race. A lot of first-timers ever around. So a lot of those people that own businesses and like what we're doing have helped us move forward and, cover our track rental for a weekend, cover food and beverages. We always do a racer. We feed all of our racers on Saturday afternoons. We put coolers with sodas, beer, water, anything anybody wants. They can just come up and get it free of charge. It's kind of the way we try to take care of people best. But yeah, we've got a handful of sponsors. A lot of them really good, and just keep offering more and more and more.
Now, what do you enjoy most about being a drag racer, Jesse?
I love the competition, and I also love the fact that everybody is there to help the next person. You can beat somebody one week, and the next week you're right there to help them, or they're right there to help you. Or I could beat somebody second round and have a fuel pump go out. I can go right to that guy and say, I know I just beat you, but I need a fuel pump race, and that guy usually pull it right off his car and let you borrow it for the next round. So the competition's great. The family atmosphere and the camaraderie is pretty much the best of it. It's addicting. It's just like anything else people really take passionately. You just get addicted to it and can't quit. And most of my friends are in racing, so if I was to quit racing, I wouldn't have any friends. I wouldn't know what to do.
Now, is there anything that you hate about being a drag racer?
Not really. I mean, I guess the number one thing that all drag racers hate is you put a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into it, and anything can happen. You can spend a lot of money on an engine and get 3 passes out of it, and it kicks the rods out of it, and now you're out $30,000 and just don't know where to start next. And most of the time, it takes people a day or two to kind of get over those emotions and say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back and not do this for a while. A couple days later, they got the engine out, they got it apart, and they're already planning on what to do next. So, yeah, that's the hardest part to me. The toughest part about drag racing is the the financial part of it sometimes, because it can definitely be heartbreaking, but we always find a way to put it together.
So now, Jesse, if you didn't become a drag racer 25 years ago, you have any idea what you'd be doing right now?
Career military.
You were in the military before?
I was not, but when I was in high school, basically, if it wasn't for racing, that's kind of the way I think I wanted to go.
All right, so now, if you could have, the fans that come out and watch you race remember one thing about you, what would you want that one thing to be that the fans remember about you, Jesse?
Well, if they're watching me actually drive, I like to think that they like the way my cars look, and I hopefully they see me win, and see that I enjoy being there the whole time. If they're watching me at an event that Tony and I, that TNA Race Club is promoting, then I hope that what they really take in is the fact that we try to do everything we can to make our racers experience the best it can be. It's not just about us trying to make money. That's what business is about. We have to make a profit. If we weren't making money, we wouldn't be able to do it. But if I got people out there watching, I'm having a good time while I'm promoting races. If my racers are having fun and they're wanting to come back to the next one, that's the most important part to me. So, to wrap that up as a whole, both, I just want people to know that I enjoy what I do. I really love doing it. And when one race is over, I can't wait till the next one.
So what's been one of your greatest memories with TNA Racing so far?
I think we had a lot of fun last year at the we call it the Twin Tens event, and we had a little discrepancy with the split at the end of the race. And basically, to put the story out there quick and easy, it was supposed to pay $10,000 to win, $4,000 to runner up, and we got a little bit behind, so we started rushing a few things, and the split got messed up. 3 guys wanted to split. One guy wasn't involved in the conversation, and after the fact, he ended up winning the race, and we said, okay, well, here's the split, and he was handed $7,000. Well, he never agreed to the split portion of it, and it was kind of difficult to deal with at the time, but I came out of pocket, and I covered the full $10,000 for him. So the last thing we ever want to do is tell a racer, you're wrong. So we came out of pocket, we took care of the situation, and there was people up and down the West Coast that know us and that know how we do things. And we got a lot of really good positive feedback from that. And the fact that we're able to take a situation that kind of was, kind of a bad deal and make it right and make everybody happy, that made us happy. And it was nothing for us to grab a couple $1,000s and make that situation right, because that's what it's all about. The last thing you want to do is basically shortchange or screw your customers. And that was really one of my most memorable moments last year, was making that situation that really could have gone bad for us and making the best out of it and being recognized for it.
Awesome. So now, after 25 years of drag racing now, do you think that you could become a better driver? And if so, how do you achieve that to become a better driver?
Well, I've struggled the last couple years driving myself. I'm not sure exactly what that was. I've driven for a lot of different people, and it seems like every time I'm driving for somebody, my ability and my desire to be successful for them is really high. So I've done really well every time I've driven for a car owner. My own stuff, sometimes I just don't put in the extra hours and a little bit of the preparation that I should. So I show up at the racetrack and I feel like I'm, a couple steps behind. And this year I told myself, at the end of last year, I told myself that in 2021, I'm going to be driving more. I'm going to drive my own stuff, but my stuff's going to be ready, and I feel like I'm going to focus more. And I'm going to be there to do well for myself. And sure enough, right out the gate this year, the first race, our first local points race in Sacramento, I ended up doubling up. I won in my Dragster and my Camaro. And it's really good to struggle for a couple of years, not get any wins, and then come back after kind of giving myself an ultimatum. You're going to do it right, or you're just not going to bother doing it. And to come out and win and feel really good about it, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
All right. Now, for 2021, how many events do you have booked so far?
For me personally, I honestly I don't know. I haven't really put a really hardcore schedule together. For me, I'll run at least 10 events at Sac Raceway. I'll drive my car. I'll probably go up to Woodburn, Boise, Las Vegas. So I'm looking at probably 15 to 18 events that I'll drive my car out this year. A little bit of Woodstock. I've got a heads-up car back in Mississippi that I'll be running at Keith Berry's Woodstock event. So that'll be a big one. That one will be a lot of fun. TNA, we have 7 races scheduled. We have 5 weekends at Sacramento Raceway, 1 at Samoa, and 1 in Darlington. And we're going to try to add one maybe in May or something down in Southern California. We really love to put a race on at Pomona Dragster.
So for you personally, what are some of your favorite tracks to race on?
Your favorite track should always be your home track. So Sacramento Raceway, I'd say, is number 1. I've always done really well at Las Vegas. I love racing Pomona, even though Pomona only runs 2 times a year, and I've stepped back from running full NHRA national events a little bit since I'm not driving a few of the cars I used to drive. But I would say Sacramento, Las Vegas, Pomona, Sonoma Raceway, that's my second home track, so I love racing at Sonoma. All the California tracks, really. There's just so few of them. We have to travel more than most people in any part of the country. It's nothing for us to say, okay, we're going to Vegas this weekend. 10.5 hours one way, 10.5 hours back. Guys that race in the Midwest, they wouldn't dare drive 10.5 hours unless there was absolutely nothing else going on, because there's so many places back there within 2 hours you can hit 5 or 6 racetracks. We don't have that luxury here, so I would say Sacramento is my first, my favorite track. Las Vegas or Pomona being number 2, and then the rest of California right in behind them.
Now, do you have any drag racers that were inspirational to you?
Oh, my dad. Other than that, I mean, my dad would be number 1, and then besides that, I would say, I'll tell everybody, I always wanted to be a funny car driver when I was a kid. At 4 years old, I wanted to be a funny car driver, and most of that was from watching Mike Dunn crash at Columbus and Orange County. There is nothing cooler than watching a big funny car explosion and a fire and watching the driver get out, throw his hands in the air, tell everybody he's okay. That is the coolest thing in the world to me. It always has been since I was a little bitty kid. So my dad, he's inspired me the most and taught me how to work hard and do things right for people. Other than that, Steve Evans and Don Prudhomme, they're the ones that hosted Decade of Thrills, and I watched that. I wore that tape out when I was a kid, over and over and over, watching Mike Dunn, John Forrest, Tim Gross, Raymond Beadle, all those old school badass funny car drivers. Those are the ones that I loved growing up.
Now, what was your first time experience like going down a drag strip?
I was just in a street car. So, you know, my Mercury, the Mercury Cyclone, it's very similar to a Ford Fairlane. So just a big, slow 14-second car. I know for the first 4 races I ran in that car, my dad actually rode shotgun with me. So the first race I ever competed at, lost the final round. Then the second race we were at, he's riding with me again. I win the final round, the second race. I'm not sure what happened the third or the fourth race. And then the 5th race we're at, we're standing the stage. He made time runs with me. And, you know, he's doing it because he was a world champion drag racer as well. So he's teaching me from the passenger seat, which is a whole lot easier than telling me what I did wrong or did right by reading the time slip. So I'm getting real-time experience from somebody who's really good at drag racing. And the 5th race we're at, he makes time runs with me, and then first round comes, and I say, hey, let's go. They got us. And he says, no, you're on your own on this one. I said, well, you're 200 pounds, and you've just been riding with me. He says, you're on your own. So I honestly think I did win that race. Can't tell you for certain, but I do remember that really well. Being a teenager, runner up my first race, win my second race, dad's riding shotgun, and then he just says, I'm out, you're on your own.
Now, was there any nervousness going on track for the first time?
No, I'll tell you, the first time we went to a test and tune, I guess it would be the very first time I drove down the racetrack, because I had a junior dragster when I was a kid, and my dad was racing pretty hardcore then. So junior dragster technology then was nothing like it is now. They were junk. So we never actually raced that junior. The first time we take the Cyclone out, we're testing, and I think my first pass, I staged fine. It's a foot brake car, so I get the RPMs up fine, make a good pass. Second pass, I was all screwed up, and I'm telling and my dad's getting on my case, and I'm telling him, leave me alone, I know how to do it. And he's in the passenger seat saying, if you know how to do it, do it. Quit screwing up and get it right. So he put some pressure on me, and it probably had me a little bit flustered, but that type of pressure was good for me, because he never just let me go up there and be mediocre. He always tried to say, just do it right and do it your best.
Now, that Camaro you're currently driving, what's the fastest run time you had with that one?
I think I've been 10:57 in the Camaro. It's funny, because me and a couple of my other buddies here that have door cars and dragsters, we love running our dragsters, and we feel like we're probably slightly more competitive in our dragsters, but it costs more money to run the dragsters. There's more maintenance, there are valve springs, lifters. It seems like when you've got 1,100 horsepower, no matter what, you're breaking something more often than your 600 horsepower small block does. So while I love driving the dragster, the Camaro is the go-to. I mean, I can run the wheels off of that car. I can make a dozen passes, 15 passes in a day if need be. I definitely double enter that car sometimes in pro and super pro. So that'll be 2 or 3 time runs, and then if you get to deep rounds, 7-round race, that's another 14 runs right there. So the Camaro, it's not a real fast car, but it's a very reliable car. It works well. Most important part on that is just keep fresh tires on it. Keep fresh tires on that Camaro, and it'll be perfect all the time, week in, week out.
What kind of tires do you have on it?
Hoosiers. That's actually a legal stock Eliminator car with a bracket engine in it. So I can't run stock Eliminator the way it sits, but if we have a stalker motor for it. If I put the stalker motor in, I could go run NHRA divisionals, nationals again. But the way the car and the chassis and the traction bars and the tires all set up, it's a legal stock Eliminator car. So it's factory wheel wells, 30x9 Hoosier tire on it. And when I run it in stock, I'll put a radial tire on. But to bracket race it, I get more runs out of a bias ply, and I can just run the wheels off it.
Now, when you get into the staging lanes, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions at all?
I guess in a dragster, I always put my left glove on first. That's about it. If I'm driving a car that gloves are required, no matter what, I'll put my left glove on first. And then other than that, when I pull in the lanes, especially for first round is the round where most people tend to be the most nervous. I'm never nervous about racing, but you roll into the lanes and you see maybe 40, 80, 100 cars in the staging lanes. There's a lot of guys that I'm trying to find the word here. It's kind of demoralizing to pull around the corner and see all those cars in the lanes. You think, oh man, there's 100 plus cars here. How can I beat all of them? Well, the fact of the matter is you don't have to beat all of them. You have to beat 7 of them or 8 of them. So if I ever get to a point where I roll in, my confidence level isn't really high. That's when I just kind of reset myself and say, doesn't matter how many cars are here. You only have to race 8 of them throughout the day. And that's one of those things that has been a little bit of a ritual since I was running a street car, because I was running a street car against some pretty competitive race cars, and I did really well in it. I won a lot of races in it, and I think that's one of those things that kind of helped ease my mind every time I pulled in the staging lanes.
Now, who do you take out for crew members when you go racing?
Honestly, I like to race alone, unless it's my dad. My dad comes out and hangs out and races all the time. He's got a '47 Chevy that he's just fallen in love with, and it's slow. He likes going. He's got a throttle stop on it, so it goes 20 seconds in the quarter mile. He just thinks it's the most fun ever. But my dad's always welcome to come with me. My family's always welcome to come with me. But if nobody ever wants to come, it doesn't matter. I like to race alone. I don't need crew people. It's kind of one of those deals where if I am relying on somebody to help me and they mess up, I have to put blame on them, and I hate doing that. It's by myself. I just put all the blame on myself. So I enjoy racing around friends and having people there. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me nervous or anything. But when it comes to saying, hey, I need to get my crew together to go race this weekend, that's not the case. I'll take 2 race cars, any racetrack, anywhere, and race by myself. No problem.
So now, when you take the dragster, you take any crew with you for that one?
Nope. It's a pretty simple to run deal. It's just like any other bracket dragster in the country. When I ran top dragster with a blown Brad Hemi in it, then it took me and the car owner and maybe one other person to do the turnaround in between rounds and do the round maintenance and a few other things. But when it comes to my bracket car, no, I don't need any help with it at all.
So what's the fastest you got on the dragster?
Which one? Any dragster?
The bracket one.
Or my bracket car?
Yeah, the bracket.
My bracket car, I've been 460s in this car. 460s to the 8th mile. 750 to the quarter mile.
No, have you had any big wins with it? Have you had any big wins with that bracket dragster?
I drove this exact car. I drove back in 2009. I think it was 2009. Maybe it's 2012 or 14. I don't know. Years go by so fast now. But at Las Vegas, down at the Thanksgiving bracket race, I won the. At that point, they had an ultimate gambler, which was $1,000 to enter. Winner take all type deal, and then the next day they put on what they called a not so ultimate gambler, which was $500 enter winner take all. So I won that weekend, and then runner up in the final round of the $5,000 on Sunday. So that car I've done well in the past, and then I built a brand new race tech in 2012, and I had the race tech dragster for a handful of years. Sold it, put this car back together. And 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago at the opener for this year was the first races I've won in this car since back in Las Vegas. But this car sat just kind of in storage for 6 or 7 years while I had the race tech.
Now, does it take a lot of preparation to get the bracket car ready?
Not too much. Most of the time I can do most of my maintenance when I'm done racing one weekend to be ready for the next weekend. Like if I win the final round, do all the picture stuff, do all the fun portion of it, and then I can bring it back to the trailer while it's still hot, run the valves, change oil, do anything that needs to be done maintenance wise. Then while the engine and the oil and everything's still hot, or if I get beat any round, it could get beat first round. If I do that maintenance before I load up the trailer and leave, then the next time around I can just roll it out of the trailer, clean it up, detail spray it, make it nice and shiny, warm it up, and go right down the track again for the next race. So maintenance isn't that bad. You just have to do it. You got to. The hardest part sometimes is convincing yourself to take that extra hour to do it. Otherwise, you're going to do it in the morning and be in a huge rush before the next race, and that's just no fun. That's lack of preparation, and that's the part that makes it more stressful, and it's harder to be. It's just harder to be confident when you're stressed.
Now, do you only do quarter mile racing, or do you eighth mile too?
I'll do both. Like all of our TNA events are all 8th mile. Now our local bracket series, Sacramento, is all 8th mile. I'll run NHRA quarter mile stuff. Doesn't matter to me. If they're racing, I'll race whatever's available.
So you have no preference?
Nope, no preference at all. Sure. I like 8th mile as far as when I'm operating my equipment, because if I'm going to put 200 or 300 runs on a car in a year, it's a lot harder on the equipment to go quarter mile. At that point, you're seeing peak RPM twice in a run. in the eighth mile, you see a shift point, and then you don't even hit the highest RPM that you would run in the quarter mile, obviously. So it's just a little bit less wear and tear on parts.
All right, so now where do you get all your fire safety equipment from?
Most of the stuff I have is, what have I got? I've got mostly all Sparco gear. 2 years ago, we put on a race at Sacramento before TNA started up. Another friend of mine, Joe Levitt, and I, we put together a race called the Western States Championship. And I ended up, one of our sponsors supplied me with a jacket after that. So I've got a Pro 1 jacket that I run in the Dragster. The Sparco jacket that I run on the Camaro, I won that at the Spring Fling back in 2014, the RackerRaces.com Spring Fling Series. Those guys give jackets to all their winners. I won that race in 2014, and I still wear that jacket. So pretty much everything I've got is Sparco with a little bit of Pro 1 gear, and I like Simpson helmets. I've got Simpson Impact Bell helmets. I've got a lot of helmets. They're all custom painted. I can't stand having a helmet without a paint job on it, so just about all my helmets are custom painted, and heck, I've been through a lot of gear in the last 25 years.
So now in the 25 years you've been racing, have you had any accidents or close calls?
I've had one accident that was more of a close call than anything, and I had no control over it. I was at Tri-State Dragway in Ohio, and one of the weirdest racetracks I've ever been to. There's actually 20 feet of grass in between the left lane and the right lane. And I remember it pretty clearly. It was first round. I was driving a friend of mine's Camaro back there. I left the starting line. The other guy went red. It kind of drifted. We're at 8th mile race. It kind of drifted towards the grass. I was in the left lane, so it was drifting to the right towards the grass. Just a little correction. Go right on through, run right on my dial. I won the round, and it keeps drifting left now towards the guardrail. And I'm turning the wheel, and it's nothing's happening. So I turn the wheel until the wheel won't turn anymore. I hit the guardrail and bounced off, and then scraped a couple more times and came to a stop. Well, the rack and pinion steering rack had broken off the chassis. So I had no control of the car at that point. So scraped the wall a little bit. Other than that, no, I really haven't had any close calls. I've driven a lot of fast stuff, from 5-second top dragster to nitro funny car. I'm pretty lucky that I haven't had anything worse than that little Camaro incident happened in all these years.
All right, so now in your 25-year drag racing career so far, what have been the milestones?
Winning the Top Dragster Division Championship in 2015 was cool. That was, my dad had won Super Street Division Championship 30 years prior to that. I qualified for the Jegs All-Stars 2 years in a row. So I went back to Joliet and raced the Jegs All-Stars race in Top Dragster twice. Winning the March meet, that's just a historical one there. Honestly, I think one of my favorite things to ever do is drive nitro funny car. And it's funny you asked if I've had any incidents or anything. I really haven't. But if you could promise me tomorrow you could put me in a funny car and set it on fire, I'd be there.
All right, now I'm going to ask you a few fun questions here before we close out. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, outside of drag racing, you have time for any other hobbies?
Mostly fishing.
Oh, yeah, I did see you had some largemouth bass in your photos.
Yeah, this past year, I used to fish a lot when I was a teenager, and then racing kind of took up most of my time for years. And then now, I've got an 11-year-old son that'll be starting to race real soon. And we do a lot of fishing together. So now we just bought a new property that's 5 acres, a pond on it, and we fish all the time out here at the pond. So when it comes down to some stuff I do outside of drag racing, fishing would probably be the number one thing.
So you slay those largemouth bass, huh?
Oh, yeah, we love it.
Yes. So what do you use, lures?
Yeah, everything's artificial baits, a lot of Senkos, a lot of top water. This pond here, they tend to just tear it up on top water. I just moved here in May, but from May to November, top water is always the go-to bait.
Now, if you could hit a time travel machine and go back in time, Would you do anything differently with the racing career?
Uh, Possibly. It's tough because if I was to say, okay, I got to do everything over, um, I'd probably get out of high school and go more towards the side of racing for a living. Even if it wasn't driving, I'd probably want to be doing tuning or working on fuel teams or doing this or that. But at the time, got out of high school, I had the opportunity to race and stay home, and I got with my now wife when we were 17 years old and been together the whole time. So that was one of the things that kind of kept me grounded and closer to home. But what I say I would do it all over again and do it differently? No, of course not, because my family's great, my kids are great, everything's great. There's probably a few times where I probably would have kept myself a little bit more focused on a few different aspects of racing. Instead of bouncing around and doing a few things, I probably could have focused on a few specific situations more. But would I do a whole lot different? No, not really. I think I've done a pretty good job.
All right, so what's your favorite food to eat?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I guess pizza is the go-to
What do you like on it?
combination. No mushrooms, though.
You don't like mushrooms?
No mushrooms. You know what they grow mushrooms in, right?
No.
Manure.
Wow. So what's your favorite beverage?
As much as I try to not drink soda lately, because I can tell every year I get older, I can tell it's harder to shed pounds off. But I love Pepsi, and if I'm not drinking Pepsi, I try to drink iced tea. And if I'm drinking adult beverages, then I got to say it's going to be a Jack and Coke.
All right, what's your favorite music?
I listen to everything, and a lot of it has to do with who I'm around. So I'll listen to a lot of pretty raunchy rap music when I'm by myself. When I've got family or in-laws around, usually classic rock. If it's with the wife and the family, then it's usually country.
Now, when you're at the track, do you have a biggest pet peeve?
I don't take losing. I take racing so seriously that it takes me a few minutes to get over losing when I lose. So my biggest pet peeve at the track is I lose, I come back to the trailer. All I need is about 10 minutes alone to, I don't know, chew my ass out a little bit and just get over it. My biggest pet peeve is when there's like people that are rushing to me. What happened? What happened? Why'd you lose? Why'd you lose? It's hard to explain that to people, but I just got to tell them, look, just give me a minute, and then I'll tell you all about it. And it's kind of funny. I have this conversation. There's a couple of racers that I grew up around and followed for years and years and years. Kyle Seipel and Eric Reyes. I'm a little kid. They were racing. They were racing real competitively, and I used to be that kid that I wanted to do everything I was doing was to emulate them. They were the best. They were the guys I looked up to the most when I was a little kid, besides my dad, of course. But I would bug them, and I didn't even realize I was bugging them, because at the time I'm like 6, 7, 8 years old. I look back, and if I could have changed one thing when I was a little kid in racing, it would have been not to bug those guys quite so much, especially when they lose. When they won, it's all fun and games. But that's my biggest pet peeve in racing, is somebody that just doesn't give someone a couple minutes to cool off.
All right. Well, Jesse, I want to thank you very much for taking time to do this interview.
Oh, of course, I appreciate it. It's great to do. Where's this all broadcast at?
It's on the live right now on the podcast, and it's recorded. I'll put it on your. I already tagged you. It's already on your Facebook page.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So, you have any final words?
Just everybody in California on the West Coast, come hit up the TNA Race Club events. You know, we work really hard to put out one of the best products we can for you racers. We try to keep the cost down, the payouts high, and the fun even higher than that. So, I'm having a good time racing. I can race anywhere alone or whatever, but I can't promote races alone. I got to have racers there. Tony and I would really enjoy it. We love the people we meet. We love the people that surround us. And then in closing, I guess, real quick, I might as well throw this out there. Let me open this up. I do want to thank a couple sponsors out there. Higher Up Staffing Services, Comp Cams, Big Speed,